we can do the declaration part. This is the way we have to type. If something went wrong, so I by purposely I made the mistake. Then here, so I declare suddenly I press something. Let's say X, Y, Z or whatever, just some numbers and X, Y, Z. Then suddenly I press enter. So there's no way of reversing this. So you, then at that point you can just type / and press enter. Then it gives you an error. Again, it prompts the SQL. It displays the SQL prompt. Then you have to type from the beginning. But to save time, if you are asked to do your work under this type of environment, first, the best thing is first you type in a notepad file and save it, right? Then you can take a copy and write as the right option is different from Windows to SQL prompt. It is different, but you can manage with copying and pasting. The other option is also available. You can directly execute a script written in SQL using @sign, right? Those two options are given for the sake of convenience, right? But for several lines of code, we are not going to type in a notepad file and execute. We directly type in the command prompt or SQL prompt and execute. Anyway, for you to practice, I first prefer you manually type this first example in the SQL prompt and observe the output, right? So you first try, as I do, you can type declare, then enter, then variable name. If it is in the same line, you can press backspace and delete. But if you press enter, it moves to the next line. Then after you cannot delete the previous line. That is how the text editor is designed in this SQL prompt. Meanwhile, actually you can experience how it is difficult and how carefully you have to handle these things in database environment. And normally databases can have, some databases would have actually 15,000 to 12,000, 20,000, 30,000 like database tables. Now you think how complex the databases are. Then you can have billions of records there, right? So it is not possible to get the answer within split seconds. And even if you think how difficult to populate or take a backup or recreate the same database instance in another place, it would be very difficult, right? Even for testing purpose. Therefore, you have to always be very careful in doing this type of thing. So I have declared my first variable. The same way you can do the second one. As I told you, Oracle is not case sensitive. Therefore, you can write these keywords like declare, begin in simple letters as well. But if you do so, you will definitely lose the contrast in between the keywords as well as the words which you have written. Right? If you take for an example, here the number should be in capital, but since I have written in number in my program, the variable name and data type cannot be clearly understood. Right? So I'm making even these small points because for you to understand and you to practice the best thing from the beginning. Right. So I have declared my variable. Then I started my code block using keyword begin. Then I'm going to access this variable. So you can select these chunks of characters by holding the left mouse button, and then once you selected, you have to press the right mouse button. That is, you have to right click. Then it copies to the buffer, and you can paste that by pressing the right mouse button again. Right? But you have to very carefully do these things when you work in the real environment. Right? These are some actually odd things we experience in our day-to-day usage. Then I type assignment operator, that is colon and question mark. Then the value is 100. Then I press enter. Then my second variable is 200. Then again I declare my second code block. So I'll declare this as of number type. Anyway, I follow the best practice, that is writing the variable type in capital letter. Then press enter. Then begin. Press enter again. code block. Once I have done this typing, I have to type / to execute the program. Right? Now see here the program has been executed successfully. Right? This is the output. The 2000, the 20,000 is the output. Right? If you have forgotten to type this set serve output on, you are not going to get the output written to dbms using dbms output.putLine statement, right? If you forgot to set the serve on. Anyway, if you want, you can turn this off as well. Let me show you. If you turn this off, then it successfully turn off. Then if you take the same code, no, it's not going to work because we copied the line numbers as well. I take it from the notepad. So then it executes, but you do not see any outputs here, right? Because I turned off serve output. You can get the previous commands using arrow keys, right? If you use the arrow keys, then it takes history line by line, right? So I'm going to set the server output on again, and then I try to execute the previous code. Now it takes the output from the server and displays the output. Are you clear on doing this practical? This is the way you have to work. If you have properly written your statement in a notepad file, then you can give the file name using @ sign. But before that, you can practice this way. If you have any questions, you can ask now, because this is our first step of doing PL/SQL. Therefore, I want everybody to confident enough to open up the command prompt and connecting to the PL/SQL engine and type your very first program with a confidence and without any errors, and observe the output, right? So I can give you some time, and meanwhile, if you have followed me and starting some point, you can let me know. Then I can instruct you how to come out from the place you have started. The step of typing the code, I made a mistake purposely. Therefore, when there's a mistake, you have to type /, then it terminates from the code block. Then you can either copy the content from the notepad. That is why I told you first you can type the content in the notepad and copy and paste into this SQL prompt. If you type without /, it will not execute until you type the / and press enter. Right? Therefore, you can type your code without /. I'll show you. Right? I just got a copy from the code I have typed in the notepad, and I have not typed my / there. Then after ending all the blocks, I can press enter. Then it goes to the next line. At that point, I type / and then press enter again. Right? This is how you can minimize your effort doing repeatedly to correct the same error or retyping the same content again and again. Even in the industry, you have to work in this manner to avoid unnecessary time wasting. Right? Even if you are asked to insert millions of records into database, you would not be able to do it at a single instance. Right? It takes some time. Right? Therefore, you have to well plan your SQL scripts. That is why we create SQL scripts in industrial applications, and we fine tune those scripts. Then we can directly ask the system to execute those PL SQL scripts, because we know for sure that is totally perfect. Then we can just execute those scripts and make the useful thing done. Right? Therefore, we are not going to type all the things in this manner when you work in the industry. Right? It's not practical. But in cases like troubleshooting, you may need to execute certain commands in the command prompt that is only taking several lines of code. Then you have to have the ability to work in that environment. That would be an added advantage for you. Even if in an interview, you may be asked whether you are able to work in this environment. Then you can say, yes, you have worked and you have experience on doing that. Therefore, you can work. If everyone is finished, we can go to the next section of our presentation. So this is what we did, and you can come up with something like this. This is again another practical example. So you can try this out, this as well. So here what I have done is I have used this default value as uh, the declaration part of the variable called university, and there I have given the University of Vocational Technology as the default name. And before that, I would like to give you another small modification. Since you have done your first program, you just change this. You can notepad. If you type copy and pasted this code in the notepad, you can easily edit this line, and you can cut this line and place in between these two ends. Then again execute the program and try to observe the output. Then you get the what we discussed about variable scope and what happens if you violated that. Here, because the this third variable we are understanding declared within the inner block. Therefore, if you try to access, it is outside the block, right? It would definitely give you an error. It can only be accessed within the same block, or if there is another inner block inside the second block, then you can access within that block as well as the block is declared, right? You cannot have you cannot access that outside outer blocks within your code. To confirm that, I would like to change only this. You can cut this and paste it, and then you can type into the just paste it into the SQL prompt and execute. Once you did that, let me know, then I can give you the next example. So doing these small things, you gradually improve with this PLSQL environment. I hope during this first hour, you have grown a lot. Right? Now you should know how to install Oracle SQL Express, not Oracle actually, Oracle Commercial Edition. This is only a lightweight edition, but you can make use of that for many purposes. Here the 11G is dedicated for grid computing. Now Oracle labels their version with C. For an example, 19C. C means for cloud computing. Right? Their versions have been improved according to the industry needs. The other thing, their licensing fee is also very much high compared to other database management systems. And the other thing, as we have discussed in our previous lessons, not only the database is actually having less important, we should have the other tools to manipulate and extract, analyze, and do all the required things related to database, right? Therefore, you have to separately pay the licensing fees for that other software as well, right? Then it would be billions of US dollars if you go for a full package. Right? That is how it is cost. Therefore, we should always keep in mind when we give a solution for IT related problem, we should consider the cost as well. Okay, now you can try this out and observe the output. Yes. Variable characters actually. There are two versions given in Oracle. So it is according to their specification. So what we have to keep in mind is to use the Vacha tool. It seems to be the newer version. So it has been internally implemented where when you give the maximum specify the maximum number of characters, then it properly handles and expands up to the maximum of number of characters you have specified. Right? It's an efficient way of managing computer memory. Right? Therefore, all the places where you are not exactly know the number of characters, so, but if you know, it can vary from this range. For an example, a name of a person, right? It can be some name having Anne or John. It can have only 3 to 4 letters, but people like in Asian countries would have very lengthy names. Therefore, you have to give lot more space in the database. But the problem is, if you allocated the same length for all the names, then you definitely waste memory. Therefore, having Vacha 2 or Vacha, any of the Vacha versions, it can expand up to the maximum number of characters you specify. Therefore, variables like name, you can specify 50 or 60 numbers, but even the actual name inserted was something like John or Anne, it does not take all the 60 character space. Rather, it takes only space required to store 4 characters. Right? So 1 and 2 also, they have some different small internal differences. Like if you take the capacity also given in according to the spec, Vacha 1 and Vacha 2 having differences. Vacha 2 can have around maximum of 4,000 characters, and Vacha can have up to 2,000 characters. Likewise, there are some small differences, but anyway, most preferably Vacha 2 is used in databases. Okay? But if you do not use any of the Vacha versions, then you may totally misusing the memory or overusing the memory. It's a waste actually. Then here what should be the output. If you have set this output on, then this should be the output. I hope everybody of you have seen this output. In all programming, actually, you have to gradually improve. Therefore, you should always engage with this programming, and you have to do some self practicals. And you can do small modifications to these programs and observe the different outputs. And if you have something in mind to change these programs, and you can do that thing and observe the output. Right? Since I have given you the opportunity to install Oracle 11G, so it could be very much beneficial for you. Now you can have your own database and do your practicals. Right. Now you can do this exercise by your own and implement your own set of PL/SQL codes and execute in the PL/SQL environment and observe the output. Though you can just take 5 to 6 attributes would be enough. You can decide any set of attributes of an undergraduate, and you can declare variables, and you can assign some sample values, and you can display them into the console. Example, with create table statements, you define a table. Right? It is come under data definition language. Then if you go to transactions, since as I heard you have not done transaction, but I briefly explained you in my one of the lectures. So you can have commit, rollback, or save point. Even if you do multiple updates, you can have this commit operation. So when you commit it, we take the database to finally accept the changes we have done. Right? In transactions, the updates may not be properly written to the database until you commit. Right? You say you have done, finalized doing the set of activities, then database management system writes that stuff into the database. Right? Therefore, even in the industry, you may do certain transaction controls as well as many inserts, update, delete, where you want the changes to be immediately effect in the database. There, so you can use this commit in that case as well. And if you take the final two statements, grant and reward, you can use this in related to discretionary access controls. I think I discussed about how database admin can assign different privileges to different users, right? Schema level privileges, table level privileges. Likewise, DBA can grant the privileges, and he can remove the privileges as well. Okay? Therefore, in that case, we use these statements when we do the programming, right? Not all may be used depending on your scope of this module, but most probably these insert, update, delete, and CS statements, it will be the common statement, and all the in-jobbing tables will be found in the next set of lectures. Apart from the variables, we have something called constant, which is again a common thing in other programming languages as well. We define some constant value if you want to make sure that value does not get changed in somehow by any means throughout the program. Right? If you take some example like mathematical constants like the value of pi, or it can be a percentage where you want to use in your calculations. Right? Once you define a particular variable as a constant, you cannot reassign a value. Right? Therefore, you can follow this syntax, the constant name, then the keyword constant, and the data type, then value. Right? Once you assign the value, you have to assign the value at the declaration part. You cannot reassign the value. Right? Later, you in your codes, once the declaration was done, you cannot, let's say you assign some value to a constant called x, you cannot have something like if you have insert assign 100, then you cannot reassign into 100 into any other value, 101 or 50 or whatever the value, you cannot reassign. Rather, what you do is you use that value in your calculations, right? For an example, if you want to calculate how many tax had to be counted based on the salary, you can just get the salary and you can multiply it by the constant value or the percentage and calculate the amount you need to deduct from the salary, right? Likewise, you can use the constant, but you cannot change the value of the constant. Here's one example. Declare salary increase, constant, number 3 equal 10. As I told you, you must assign a value to the constant at the time you declare the variable. If you do not do so, then it results in an error. Now you can look at this example, and you can meanwhile you can try this out in your PLSQL environment. And first you try to type this as it is, then you should see even if you assign the same value, what will happen. Okay. Can you see my screen or still not possible?